All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Barrett and Baxa podcast. I'm Bob Baxa, and
I'm Steve Barrett.
Yeah, and I just saw something so funny that we are going to talk about this right out of the gate because this is freaking hilarious. Minnesota, where Steve is right now.
Oh, good home state here.
Yeah, listen to this. A new bill in Minnesota, Senate Bill 2589. This is real. Officially designates Trump derangement syndrome as a statewide mental illness. It is defined as acute onset of paranoia in otherwise normal persons triggered by Donald Trump's policies and presidency. Symptoms include hysteria, an inability to distinguish policy differences from psychological pathology, and hostility or aggression towards Trump and his supporters. The bill describes this behavior as both verbal hostility and acts of violence. That fucking is awesome. I love that.
And that's in Minnesota?
Yeah.
It's a real bill.
It's real. I mean,
it'll never make it through in Minnesota.
No, it won't. I Googled it, and there's a number of websites reporting on it. It does seem to be real, and it is absolutely needed. The level of insanity that you people exhibit, I mean, the level of hatred you have for this man, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I don't know if you guys understand this, but the opposite of love is not hate. Love and hate are the same emotion. The opposite of love is indifference. You would be so much cooler if you were indifferent to Trump. And the fact that you spend this much energy hating the guy, you're clearly in love with him. On some level, you're in love with Trump, which is why you hate him so much. He's like your girlfriend who broke up with you and you're obsessed over her.
And a lot of the mainstream media really went nuts this week because he showed up at the Department of Justice to give a speech and was escorted in by Pam Bondi. And that's one of the, that's a little bit of Trump derangement syndrome there, because they called it, like, if you Google that speech, the word that you get is unprecedented.
Right.
It's unprecedented that he would give a speech. But Bush did it. One of the Bushes, I think it was H.W. Clinton gave a speech at the DOJ. Obama gave a speech. The only one that didn't give a speech at the DOJ apparently is Joe Biden, because he can't give a speech.
No, he doesn't give speeches.
Yeah, he never gave speeches. He's
fully senile.
Right. So and did you see as he was walking in that Pam Bondi turned around and pointed to the picture of Donald Trump?
No,
it's on the wall. She had to point out that, I made him because Pam Bondi, isn't she the one that took the Joe Biden picture down? It was several weeks after the inauguration. And she said, no, I'm taking this down myself. And she went out and took it down.
Right.
No, what a fighter that one is.
She is awesome. And dude, the media is losing their shit over this whole DOJ thing. Like, last night on MSNBC, I was listening to it on Sirius XM on the way home, and they were just obsessing over this speech. They, as you said, they kept calling it unprecedented. And apparently Trump said something about 2020 in this speech, and the mainstream media are obsessed with 2020 and Trump's unwillingness to concede that he lost. They constantly talk about it. They are constantly criticizing for 2020. This is 2025, and they're still talking about 2020 because every time Trump brings it up, he says it was rigged, and then they lose their minds and throw a full temperature. It's like the whole thing is so predictable at this point. Trump trolls them. They take the bait every time. They lose their shit. They throw a full tantrum. They go on the air and cry. And I think Trump is laughing at them. I really do. I know I am. I mean,
no, I think he is too. I think he knows that they're basically eating themselves alive, and they are. They're now fighting amongst themselves. Everybody's pissed off at Chuck Schumer, and they're fighting with John Fetterman. But before we leave the DOJ thing, I actually have a Pam Bondi story. Bob, that I don't think you've heard. I once had went a couple of rounds with Pam Bondi in a courtroom of all places, believe it or not.
When she was the Attorney General of Florida.
No, it was back when she was a prosecutor down in
Wow.
Hillsborough County. She
Oh,
wasn't the state attorney, but she was an assistant state attorney, and she was basically assigned to a murder trial. And it was a very well covered murder that happened in the Tampa Bay area in Hillsborough County. And this guy named Adam Davis and his girlfriend had killed the girlfriend's mom, and then they took off and went across country spending money on her in her car and spending money on her credit cards. Well, he was arrested along with the girlfriend, and at the time I was the managing editor at the ABC affiliate in Tampa. A phone call came into the newsroom from the jail, and our assignment editor said, "Hey, Steve, you might want to take this. It's Adam Davis." Well, this is a guy we've been covering like top story on our newscasts for 2 weeks now, probably. And he's finally sitting in the Hillsborough County Jail, and he's calling us from the jail. So I answer the call, and he wants to speak to one of our anchors, Linda Hurtado. And I got on the phone. I said, "She's not here right now, but can I ask what you want to talk to her about?" And he said that he wanted to sit down and do an interview with Linda Hurtado. And
nice.
so I immediately called Linda. I said, "Linda, I know you're not at work right now, but can we pin this down for tomorrow and schedule an interview?" So we schedule this interview, exclusive interview with Adam Davis, and it's scheduled for like the next morning at about 11 a.m. I get to work the next day, and there's suddenly Pam Bondi has called an emergency hearing in the courtroom to talk about our interview
No
with
way.
Adam Davis. And so I was sent, or not sent, I went over to the courthouse to go to the hearing, and I'm just, sitting in the courtroom listening to this hearing. And Pam Bondi's describing how Adam Davis was coerced into this interview, and the media is pestering him and trying to make him do this interview, and they won't leave him alone. And she wants the judge to say, "No, you can't do the interview," and put a kibosh on the interview.
Really?
And yeah, so I'm hearing all this, and I'm not up there in front of the court, but I did stand up and raise my hand, and I said, "Ms. Bondi is talking about me. Like I'm the guy who's set all of this up. So if you'd
Right.
like me to tell you what happened, Your Honor, I absolutely will." So I explained to him that I didn't call Adam Davis. Adam Davis called us. He wanted specifically to talk to one particular anchor because he really liked her. And all I did was go through the regular process of setting up an interview at the Hillsborough jail, county jail. And Adam Davis was up on the stand at this point, and the judge said, "Mr. Davis, is this what happened? What Mr. Barrett is saying?" And Adam Davis said, "Yeah, it absolutely is what happened." And meanwhile, his attorneys are also in there, or the public defender that he had at the time. And the public defender convinced him on the stand that no, you really don't want to do this interview anyway. So the judge said, "Do you want to do the interview or not, Mr. Davis?" He said, "No, I thought about it. A second thought, no, I don't want to do it." So the
Right.
interview's off. About 2 hours later, I'm sitting back at the office in the newsroom, and I get another call from Adam Davis. And I think his attorney was on the line or something like that. And he said, "I do want to do the interview. After you stood up and explained and stood up for yourself and explained that you weren't harassing me, I thought you were being very honest. And so I want to do the interview."
Cool.
And
Nice.
then the interview happened because he
Nice.
changed his mind, and we set up the interview and did it. So in the end, I mean, maybe I
You
beat Pam
got it.
Bondi in court. I don't know.
You did.
Yeah.
Nice.
So how
Yeah.
about
That's
that
a good story.
story?
I like that. It's very
Yeah.
good. A Pam Bondi story. See, these are the things you get when you listen to the Barrett and Baxter podcast. You get these firsthand stories from our life, mixed in with stupid opinions from dumb people who really don't know all that much. So it's a little bit of, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's very good. All right. What's our next? Are we going to clank it right there?
Yes. All right, Bob, you often talk about how you can't stand the way liberals think and what they
Yeah.
say, but we talk sometimes, and there are a couple of them that are starting to make sense. Bill Maher is one of them.
Right. And they're being criticized for it. I mean, Bill Maher is pretty far left. I mean, he's a perfect example, just like Joe Rogan. These are people that are on the left, but because the line has moved so radically far left, people who used to just be somewhat left are now almost considered right wingers. Like Joe Rogan is called a right winger. He is not. He voted for Bernie Sanders. Like Joe Rogan is fully on the left. He is not a right winger, but he's considered it. And Bill Maher is another one who, just because he's making common sense. See, this is the problem the Democrats have. They are hijacked by the far left. They can't get away from it. And Gavin Newsom, we were going to talk about Gavin Newsom as well. He just experienced it. He experienced it this week because he said it's not fair for boys to play in girls' sports. This is an 80% issue in the United States. And I bet it's probably a 95% issue, but there are people that are just afraid to give the truth to a pollster. I mean, go out to Missouri or Indiana or anywhere, and probably even New Jersey, and ask people, should boys be playing girl sports? And it's overwhelmingly no. But the radical far left lunatics, for whatever reason, are demanding that these boys who have declared themselves girls should now be considered actual girls, and they should be allowed to play sports against real girls. And when Gavin Newsom just said a pretty innocuous thing, that he doesn't think it's fair, he's been attacked everywhere. Like he may have completely lost the far left vote. I don't know.
But I think it's bad news for Republicans that there are some people that are speaking common sense to issues like this now. And those are the people that, Gavin Newsom, he's going to run for president.
Of course.
Bill Maher, he's spoken out about this and said, shut up about these issues. And so, in fact, he had on just recently Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, and he almost got Shapiro to admit that he's running for president too. So there are going to be, in the next presidential election, some people who are trying to position themselves closer to the center and away from these 80-20 issues. So to expect that they're just going to be that crazy throughout the next election, I think is wrong. And you can also point to John Fetterman is in that camp.
When the reporters know now that, and certainly the conservative reporters know this, all you have to do is, to one of these so-called moderates like a Gavin Newsom or a John Fetterman, all you have to do is say, hey, I have a yes or no question for you. Can a man become a woman by simply declaring that he is now a woman? Is that possible? Yes or no? And clearly the answer is no, but the radical far left demands that you bow down at the altar of transgenderism and that you speak these insane lies. And if you don't, they attack you, and they're violent. I mean, I'll be attacked for saying this, but so I don't know, how does a guy?
I'm sure you will.
Right.
Yeah, I think the way you look at it is the way I look at it. I think at this point, for me, that battle has been won. And now it's just giving it more oxygen if you, kind of continue to stoke that fire. I really do believe the pendulum has swung in the common sense direction. And that's why you see.
But has it really? Look at Maine. Just this, like 2 weeks ago in Maine, a biological boy won a girls' track meet. So has it been won? If there are states that
I think Maine is going to have to deal with that. The people of Maine are going to have to decide, what they want to do and who they want to elect. And I think that's going to be the real telling thing as we move forward here. How much momentum do Republicans have, and how much momentum can Democrats gain with, people? And I think they're going to gain with the people like Bill Maher, like Shapiro, like Fetterman, people that are sort of focusing on the things in the middle. On the issue of Fetterman, I want to read. I love his quotes. That's the thing about Fetterman. What you said earlier, that we all thought he was nuts, that he was brain damaged and could never do it.
His stroke.
But he comes up with the funniest things. This was his reaction. So apparently AOC was all upset over the shutting down the government, and that Fetterman was one that voted not to shut down the government.
Right.
And he said he said to the reporter, this is a reporter from The Hill, I believe, is where I was reading this. He said, I hope you can relay how little I care about her views on this.
Nice.
So they're
That's good.
sending messages now through the media, and
Nice.
they've got the infighting going. Another good quote recently was that he feels like Democrats are showing up to a knife fight with a casserole.
That is a good one. I like it. There was another one. He does come up with some good quotes. And he is making some common sense. But I will say, before we get too, lovey-dovey about John Fetterman, he, along with every other single Senate Democrat, voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. So I will die on this hill. I will never stop talking about it. And quite frankly, there's federal law. There's Title IX. Title IX was put in place to protect girls. So if there's a federal law that protects girls and states can just disobey it, then, I mean, what the hell are we doing? Like, how can states just decide to obey federal law? It goes back to the slavery issue. That's what happened with slavery. The states were trying to say that slavery was a states' rights issue. And
Mhm.
during that whole time period where the northern states, of course, didn't have slavery, and they were trying to outlaw slavery nationwide, and southern states were saying, look, this is a states' rights issue. And it didn't fly then, and it's not going to fly now either. I mean, Title IX protects girls. That's all there is to it. So I hope this is going to go to the Supreme Court, and that's coming very soon. There is a case that is coming very soon that's going to address a lot of this stuff. And there's going to be violence, of course, just like there always is. There's going to be violence on this as well, but that's because that's what they do when they have TDS. So,
All right, enough about TDS.
clank
Clank
it.
it. Bob, you're in a different shirt, I see
Yeah,
now.
we're changing shirts periodically to make people think that we're like super professional.
It's a head fake.
Doing this on different days, but really we're doing this on the same day in different shirts. So now I'm in a new shirt, and people can act like we're doing it in a different day. So.
The tricks of podcasting.
Yes, we are experts in podcasting.
You think the Kelce brothers know the tricks of podcasting?
They just got $100 million. I mean, shit.
Can you believe that?
Who's gonna, seriously, in all seriousness, is there someone out there who is like dying to watch a Jason and Travis Kelce podcast? Like, I get that they're NFL players. I mean, I guess there is, but I mean, they're paid $100 million. So think about, even if you paid them $2 million, then it's like, all right, we just have to make $4 million in advertising, and we got a profit. But if you're paying them $100 million, like, how much fucking advertising do you have to now sell in order to get, to make back that money?
And that's just the money that they are being paid, and you're not even producing the podcast.
What am I missing here? Like, how does this work business wise?
So even if they somehow make 110 million back,
right?
So that means that you're making only 10% on that investment, which isn't, for people spending $100 million on an investment. That's not a huge amount of money.
And I mean, what kind if you go to a product like Bud Light or something, and you're trying to sell them ad time, if I'm Bud Light, I'm like, all right, Travis Kelce's good, whatever. They're good. They're NFL players. But first of all, every NFL player has a podcast. I mean, would I be likely to spend my money on this one, or do I want to spend it on the Tom Brady podcast or the Joe Montana? I mean, there's 1,000 NFL podcasts. There's only so much time in the day. Like, if I'm a person who loves NFL podcasts, how many can I really listen to? And I'm really curious, how the fuck do you make it work giving these guys $100 million?
And I have no idea. Like, I would have loved to have been in that meeting when they were saying, hey, why don't we do this? Let's get the Kelce brothers together and we'll give them $100 million for this podcast.
Yeah.
And then where is the PowerPoint presentation that explains how you make that money back and then some?
I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to approach Coca-Cola and Bud Light. They're each going to pay, they're each going to buy $10 million worth of advertising. All right, so there's 20. Now you just have to make $80 more million to break even. Not to make a profit, to break even. Like, I really feel like I am missing something. But is podcasting this lucrative? And when do we sign our first nine-figure
Big
deal.
deal. Yeah.
When does that happen? I'm
I don't
looking
right
forward to it.
after right after Michelle Obama she already got one.
Yes,
She's already
dude.
got one with her
So
brother.
first of all, here's my question on that. You've heard the rumors about her being a man? I don't think she's a man, although the internet says 100% she is a man. What
Well,
do
I
you
don't
think?
know if it's 100%, Bob.
Well, that's probably true. A
I,
lot of
I,
people.
I think that it's something that was very much made up just
Okay.
to like bash the Obamas. But I do
Okay.
think that maybe there's something to this idea that Michelle and Barack are not on the greatest of terms.
That seems real because all you have to do is look when a married couple is who's very high profile goes to one event separate. That people are going to be like, "Oh, that's weird." Then they go to a second event separately, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. Once you start going to every event separately, people are going to say, why aren't you with your wife? And they've gone to like multiple events now in a row separately, or
But
one
there's
goes.
another explanation for that being floated out there already, that Michelle had some work done prior to the podcast that she would have been sort of healing from or
Okay,
recovering from
right.
in the time that she didn't show up at those very public events.
Huh.
So I don't know, but it sure does seem like you're not seeing a lot of them together
Oh,
anymore.
do you think she's going to run for office? Is that
No, I don't. I don't. I think I believe when she says, like, I hate politics.
yeah, she's not
This is
interested.
terrible. But
It's
you
too
never
much
know if the
bullshit.
podcast doesn't work out. Who knows what she's going to do next? But also, if the podcast is a real flop, which so far
So
it's
far it is.
not doing great, apparently. We'll see as time goes on. As we know,
Apparently there was
these podcasts take a little while to get
yes,
going, don't they, Bob?
I heard there was 40,000 viewers, which for a national podcast with someone, I mean, who was the first lady, who has an immediate universal name recognition, 40,000 people is apparently very, very low. And again, for advertisers, I mean, you could reach a lot more than that on some, low rated sporting event. So why are you going to buy advertising? I'm very curious about being trying to sell advertising, and it's so fractured. Like, how do you convince a company to buy advertising with your thing? I would really like be interested in knowing how that works. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with her and see if they announce a divorce anytime
Well,
soon.
our advertisers are going to buy because they love us so
Right,
much.
we're super
And
talented.
we are super talented and we have such a camaraderie
Correct.
and you can just feel that coming through.
That's
Um,
what we've been told.
one more podcast is Gavin Newsom's podcast, and he's already
Yes.
getting shit from liberals for just talking to conservatives.
Right. We were just talking about that, and it really is true that he's getting a lot of criticism. Somebody, who did he have on? Steve Bannon, and The View lost their shit. I mean, The View loses their shit over everything,
Yeah.
but The View was freaking out, saying that he should not give a platform to Steve Bannon. They hate Steve Bannon, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see moving forward how he sort of navigates that. How does he keep the far left happy and also bring in independence? That's the problem. I don't
Yeah.
know how he does it. Plus, he's
Well,
got the fires he's got are on him pretty much. People think he didn't handle them very well.
so one of the things that was part of the Bill Maher interview with Josh Shapiro was about the selection process. Remember when we were talking about whether it was going to be Shapiro, maybe Gavin Newsom, maybe the governor of Illinois, Pritzker,
Right.
who was going to be the vice presidential candidate? And it was my feeling, and I was saying back then that none of these people want to be the vice presidential candidate because they don't want to be attached to that
Right.
campaign. What
Right.
they wanted was this clean slate, which is what they all got. They got
Yeah.
the chance that Kamala lost,
Right.
right? So now each of them can try and define themselves aside from her. The only one that can't is Walz.
Right.
And but now Newsom and Shapiro and even Pritzker can sort of start their campaign fresh without any baggage from that. And that's what I
Good
thought
point.
was going on. I think that she chose the governor of Minnesota because no one else said yes. I think she went around and said, do you want to do this? Gavin Newsom? No. Josh Shapiro? No. And everybody said no to her. And she basically just had to go down her wish list until she got to somebody that said okay. And the first person that said okay, that was it.
Tampon Tim.
That was it.
Tampon Tim. Yeah, you might be right. I think that's a very good possibility that that is what happened. She was so poisonous that none of them wanted to be tainted by her, to coin a phrase. And you're probably right that Tampon Tim was, and of course, as everyone knows, we call him Tampon Tim because he put tampons in the boys' bathroom in Minnesota for the boys who menstruate, who are actually girls who are pretending to be boys. They're not actual boys, as we all know. They are girls. If you menstruate, you are female. I hate to do the little biology lesson for you, but Tampon Tim might have been the only one who said yes. Yeah, stolen valor, Tampon Tim. He might have been.
Bob, to bring it full circle, do you think Tampon Tim has any possibility of signing the Trump derangement syndrome bill into law here in Minnesota?
He's the governor. Probably not. It was brought to the floor by Republicans, and that's a Democrat state. So probably not. But it's funny that they're doing it, and it got mentioned on the Barrett and Baxa podcast. So that's worth something.
Yeah, that gives it some leverage.
It sure does.
All right.
So we'll probably wrap things up right there, huh?
Yep, let's do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Give us your feedback at barrettandbax@gmail.com, and please subscribe if you like what you're hearing. We'll see you next time.